Can you hear me?
Stefano,
Are you there?
oh, how are you?
Can you see me?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Your video is still off. Or yeah,
Oh, how I can never get this right. I hate this.
I understand. Look down in the low. Take your cursor down to the lower left hand of the screen,
Yeah.
and you should be able to just click on it and remove that. Um,
No, it did this to me yesterday as well. Hold on. Start. Oh, you've gone. Now what's happened?
there we go. I saw you there for a brief moment.
Yeah, hold on a sec. Are you there? Can you see me?
Oh yeah.
It's boiling here, and I've just run from the office. So, what's going on? Video. Da, 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 da. What's going on here? Right. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Hold on a second. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Just bear with me a second, Randy. Let me sort myself out here.
Sure, go right ahead. I'll say hello, Wendy, in the meantime.
Have we got many people coming?
Uh, I don't know how many will actually show up, but hopefully we'll have a big audience. And everybody is muted at the when they enter in, but hopefully I can. Let me see if I can unmute Wendy and so I can speak. She's
Hey
the only
guys,
person.
I'm here a little early. I know I'm here early.
Well, you're quite welcome to come early. That's all right, not a problem.
Yeah,
We're just
I'm at another appointment, so I'm gonna just kind of sit quietly in the background, but I can talk and say hello real quick.
That sounds good.
How's everybody doing?
We sort of changed it around a bit since the. I'm sorry. What was that again?
Right.
How's everyone doing?
Sorry, go on.
Good.
Go on. Randy,
Yes,
I can't screen share because it says host has disabled participant screen share. So you've disabled me. So if you can enable me, please, or make me a co-host or whatever. Then
let me do that. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't know that Allison was not going to be participating in this,
right.
And so.
Well, before the meeting gets underway, I just want to say real quick, I had a big announcement yesterday that I was appointed to become the ambassador between Jamaica and Orlando Real Estate.
Oh, congratulations. I want to talk to you about that.
Oh, great. So if there's anything I can do to help you, do business in Jamaica or, see what you're doing and see how we can connect each other with other resources and individuals, I'd love to, help
Absolutely.
me.
Absolutely. That would be grand. Okay, give me a moment here. I'm going to have to try to figure out why I can't make Stefano a I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to call Allison and see if she can do that. I'm not in control of this board, Stefano, and so she let me give her a quick call and ask her to make that change.
Okay.
Stefano, try this. Put in click on.
Yeah, put the password in. I put the password, the number in to get in, 14408, whatever it was.
Oh, okay.
What's going on here? Right. Share screen. Right, yeah. I can't share my screen until you do that. Could you not make me a co-host, Randy?
Oh, hold on just a moment. Let me leave her a message. Hey, Allison, I'm on the phone or on the show with Stefano, and I'm not able to make him host. So if you could, it looks like you're coming in as host. Good. All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi there. Sorry, I was having a panic moment.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, that's okay. You said that you'd be in at this time. We just all arrived a bit early, so I just, since you're the host, I needed that you be able to, no wonder I couldn't give it to Stefano. I'm not host here, but can you make him co-host?
Yep, Randy, you are now host.
Okay.
And if you want to make Stefano co-host,
Okay.
good to do that now.
Excellent. There you go. You should be all set now.
Well, let me try. You're a star. Well done. Can you see that, Randy?
I can, yes, perfectly.
Good. Where's my book gone?
They got to get that up there. Good job.
I did one yesterday with Carla on buying safely in France. That went
Yeah.
really well. Yeah, it's the fourth one out of about 7 that we're doing. So we're doing Dominican Republic in about a month's time, 3 weeks, 4 weeks time. So
Excellent.
I'll ping you when we're doing that one because it's usually of interest, isn't it? Dominican Republic to the US audience.
Oh, absolutely. We have a couple of offices there, one in Punta Cana and the other on the North Shore in Sosúa.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'm go on.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've only done about 6 slides because I intend to talk about around the book. But so that's going to be, it's just you and me, isn't it? At the moment? Nobody else.
That's correct. Just I'll do an intro and then
that's what I'm going to talk about basically.
We'll wait for everyone to join in, and
then
I'll introduce you and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And then everyone will stay on mute and hopefully they'll put questions into the comments section and then we'll start. You should be able to. You'll see those as well, and then you can respond to those questions as you choose. Yeah,
I mean, if you moderate, I'll talk for about 50 minutes, and then I'll say back over to you, Randy, and what questions, and you'll throw the questions to me. I mean, excuse me. As I say, I've only put 6 pointers in, and it'll start with sort of an introduction as to who I am and who the firm is,
Sure.
And then I'll go into the book, and then at the end, I'm just going to do a slot because I think it's very important. Like you've listened to me before, I think on making a foreign will and you know, just a quick thing on foreign wills, and then closure for questions, and then that's it. Is that right?
That sounds perfect.
Brilliant. All right.
It looks like we have welcome Ricardo, welcome Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I'll work it from there. It'll sort of meander gently along through the book. It might follow it, it might not follow it. And I'll, as you're probably aware, having listened to me before, I'll sort of, sometimes when I think something is important, I'll sort of veer off track if something, you know, needs to be said, as it were.
Well, I have plenty of experience at what a great raconteur you are. So I'm sure it's going to be cogent and entertaining all at the same time.
Yeah, I'll mix it with a bit of law, as you know I do, and some stories along the way. Whatever comes to mind will come out. Basically, there's no structure for it. If I go over my 50 minutes, just come back on and just stop me. But I've got my watch in front of me, so okay. I will be to time. You know, we'll see where we go. Tell the guys to throw questions at me. I mean, it's exciting when you get questions from an unknown audience. I like to have that, and I think it's very entertaining to get questions, especially from the other side of the pond where you see things. And I've learned this, I think, from dealing with Carla over the years.
Right.
You do things in a slightly different way, and you have different language, and different things don't always pan out. So it's quite interesting, and the way you Americans see things. I mean, we've got an influx now of Americans in the last 3 months since COVID coming into Portugal, France, and Italy. And big American lot trying to look out their antecedents and their historical partnerships with grandfathers, grandmothers from Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, wherever, and trying to get other passports so that they can circumvent the Schengen rules and the problems. And I mean, we've had a load in England of Americans coming in saying, oh, I've got Italian antecedents, can we get an Italian passport? All the rest of it. So as to get around, those Americans that live in the United Kingdom are subject to Brexit and all the other stupidities that we're going through at the moment. Can you hear me clearly? You okay hearing me?
Yeah, hear you just fine.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and the image is good, so yeah, I think we're fine. We'll give everyone a few minutes. We're still 8 minutes away from launch, so
Good.
I did want to say, in reference to what you were just saying about Italy and Portugal.
Yeah.
I think I sent you a note on my my daughter-in-law's parents, who have been living in Slovakia now for about 2 years, and they may still be in Italy, but they put a contract on a place in Puglia, down by the boot. So you may be hearing from them.
Well, tell them to give me a shout. Give them my email, my telephone number. Always happy to help them out, no problem. Because of course, as you know, the further south you go in Italy, the closer you get to Africa, the more third world would become, unfortunately, and the less rules are adhered to. Yes, it's that sort of Wild West territory scenario. The further north we go in Italy, the more serious people are. And it's not unknown for notaries in the south of Italy to bend the laws. I've had one recently where a notary made a notaio made a swimming pool on a plan disappear, and it was conveyed without the swimming pool, but the swimming pool was there, but it was conveyed on paper without any mention of it because it was illegal and hadn't been built with the proper permission. So she just made it disappear.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the north and south. My wife's mother, her father was from Sicily and her mother was from Florence, so that was interesting.
Couldn't get a bigger divergence. Of course, my father was from Florence. He passed away a few years, 3 or 4 years back. My mum's from Rome, and Florence and Rome not too bad, but any further south than Rome, people start to change, especially towards Naples in the south. They start to change ideas and how they do things and what they think and how they think. I've got a couple of clients who are in Sicily at the moment in a place called Noto, N-O-T-O, on the southeast coast. And they were trying to buy some things which apparently were 2 rooms that didn't have anything else on them, and they were classed as flats and all sorts of bits and pieces, and they didn't have a toilet and didn't have the right permissions, literally a cave sculpted into the wall. So I told them to go away and find something else, which they have done now. But you know, people are very much romanticized when they get there abroad. They fall for the silver tongue of you beautiful estate agents who you know, swing them into buying things that perhaps they shouldn't be. And of course, I generalize. I wouldn't for 1 minute paint you colleagues in Fiabsi over there with the same brush, but you know what I mean. In Italy, we are a little bit laissez-faire, and we do a little things when we shouldn't under the table, perhaps.
Well, I would confess that sometimes charm is in abundant supply in the islands for our agents as well. So. And 2, I mean, it's just intoxicating to be in some of these locations and think that you could. It's going to be the same actually living there, which I think you address very well in your book, by the way.
Thank you. What did you think of it? Because I haven't talked to you since you'd read it. Do you think it covers everything it should do?
I do, and one of the things that I think I mentioned to you, she was about halfway through it. My son borrowed it from me. I've yet to get it back now. So he's a realtor in Florida, but with Coldwell Banker, and but yes, it's very good, and it's directly to the point with none of the other things that you have to fluff, I call it. So it's I thought you did.
It's meant to be a hard-hitting guide to what you should.
Just the facts.
Yes, it doesn't tell you. I can't explain in the 110 pages, whatever it is, everything I've learned in 33 years of having done it, but I can give you an eye opener. I can give people, not like yourselves, people who are lay people, not estate agents, I suppose, who have never done this exercise before, what they need to know. And the problem is that on many occasions, people think that they either have the misconception that the law is the same abroad, and just because they're excellent buyers of property in the United Kingdom, they can do it abroad. or that they go over there and the agent, of course, doesn't want me to get involved because the agent sees me as a spanner in the works, where he or she, like, especially in Europe, I don't know in America, but we don't deal with America really. But in Europe, the estate agent, because it's a civil law jurisdiction, doesn't understand why I'm getting involved and why you're getting a lawyer involved. And I shall explain all this during the talk. But and that's one of the misconceptions. People get dragged along. They go abroad and they buy when they shouldn't. They don't do the proper research and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Stefano. It's Joanne Dowds from New York, Biopsy.
Hello, I don't see you. I can see you.
I'm not on the screen because I'm eating. I'm so sorry, I just ran.
You're
but
eating. How dare
It
you.
is such a pleasure to be with you as the third round for me.
Thank you. The third man, eh? Orson Welles.
The third
Eh?
round, I can't get tired of it.
Thank you. Did you listen to the one I did yesterday, Joanne?
No, I didn't. I was very involved in big trees falling down all over New Jersey.
Oh my!
Yeah, you've had terrible winds. Is that right? I hear storms.
We had a hurricane here, and I will tell you, of the 11 of my closest friends, I'm the only one with power, and I'm keeping it to myself.
Good girl. Well done. You do that. I've got a friend of mine who can't get back to the United Kingdom from America. He's in New York. He's on Fifth Avenue, a New Yorker. He's an Italian American, and he's one of the mafia. Well, he thinks he's 78 and he looks 58. And he says, well, it's only a bit of wind. He says it's nothing to worry about. We've just had a little bit of wind, a few trees in the park fallen down. What it's normal.
Well, over here is nothing normal.
No, you Americans are never normal, are you? It's us,
No.
Europeans that are normal.
But our town was founded in, I know you're much older, but we were founded in 1600. So we have trees that are 400 years old. They're enormous. So if a branch comes down, it could destroy your house. I mean, so we're dealing with that electrical. All electrical is out.
All right. Raquel, can you hear me? Oh, you can't hear. You can't speak. You're on mute, aren't you? I can see the top half of your face from your eyes upwards. That's better, and I can see you. It's nice to see a smile on someone's face, just the nose upwards.
Oh yeah, and just a heads up. Hello to Joshua and to Evan, who's joining us from Seattle. Delighted to have you with us today, and we'll get started here in just a moment. Gemma, how are you?
There, Randy.
Pleasure. Hi.
Hi, I'm great. Thank you.
Okay. We'll start with everyone. I think muted here, but if we don't get too much larger an audience that we have maybe it looks like we may have. Well, we're up to 13 now. So, we'll go over some admin rules in just a moment, or procedures, I should call them. Let's see, what time do we have? Oh, okay, it's 1 o'clock. So, what we'll do is you can really see some of the information there from Stefano. He's probably familiar to many of you. He's been kind enough to do a lot of several presentations for FIOPSI, and so we certainly want to thank him for that. I don't think she's on right now, but I wanted to thank Carla Raymond Kidd for sharing Stefano with us, because she introduced us. And so then we've kept him busy since that time. So as you probably saw in your email, just to give you some background, that Stefano is the senior partner, qualified in England and Gibraltar, and has been providing legal advice and support to people and businesses throughout the UK and Europe for more than 20 years. And he also, if you don't mind my sharing this, Stefano, that he's quite an accomplished chef, and actually has a YouTube channel where you can watch his cooking. And so I'm hoping that we can compel him today to post his link to his YouTube page, Stefano, and so we can all learn your lasagna recipe.
Okay.
Fair enough. So anyway, all that said, then what we'll do, Stefano will go over his presentation, which is based upon his book, which he'll be sharing with you in a moment. And then we will, as we go along, if you would, please take your cursor down and click on the chat and enter whatever questions you might want to ask him. And then at the end of the presentation, Stefano will address your questions, and we'll go from there, okay? Hopefully everybody can hear well and see everything. If there's a problem with that, please put that in the chat as well. So everyone will be muted at this point, as you can see, but Stefano, take it away.
Thank you, Randy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to you in the USA. I hope you're all well under these stress times. It's very stressful nowadays, I know, and we're all just getting back into the buying business, selling business of property, the legals. I know that for the first 4 weeks of lockdown, we fell off the cliff, literally, in London for lawyers' work for international property, because the last thing that anyone wanted to do was to buy a property abroad. They were more concerned about surviving, let alone buying anything else abroad. But fortunately, the tide has turned. People have said, just like Brexit, like in England, that we've got Brexit, they couldn't wait any longer. And people have started to venture out into Europe now, and they've started to buy property in Europe. My background is that I've been an international property lawyer now for some years. What I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm going to do a small introduction. I'll talk to you about my book and go through it in chapters, and it'll take me, as I said to Randy before, it'll take me in all directions. As I think of something, I'll tell you. Those of you who listened to me before know I've got a few stories up my sleeve. I'll talk to you about the civil law jurisdictions in Europe, because mainly we, as a law firm in England, we don't only do common law stuff, which is English stuff, but we also do foreign stuff, and that's why we are such a niche practice. We're very small, we punch very much above our weight. In fact, I've been watching this American series Suits, or The Suits, or whatever, and I'm engrossed in that with Meghan Markle, you know, I'm very much like they are, punching above their weight. And as Randy's probably said to you, I'm probably one of the most established and most well-known international property lawyers, dedicated to buying property abroad for clients, and passing on my tips to agents, non-agents, clients, and whatever. Always happy to help out. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. We'll go through whether you need estate planning, which I think you do. We'll have a quick chat about post-COVID, and then we'll have questions and answers, if I can find my cursor. So who are we? Who am I? Well, my name is Stefano Lucatello. I'm a good English name, of course. Joking. I'm Italian. My father's from Florence. My mum's from Rome. I was born in Yorkshire in the north of England, because they decided to emigrate from Italy because they thought they'd have a better life in England. And to be fair, the United Kingdom's treated them very, very well. My dad was a research chemist in a big multinational, and my mum was head of the Italian language department with my auntie for many, many years in the local university in my city in Hull in the north of England, which quite coincidentally is twinned with a city in America called Raleigh. So I'm an English solicitor, an attorney, an English attorney. I'm regulated both in England, Wales, and in Gibraltar, as Randy said beforehand. So I do offshore tax and trust jurisdictional work as well as buying properties abroad. And we're members of AIPP. You'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, the white, blue, and green logo, the Association of International Property Professionals, which maybe many of you are if you deal with Europe. And it's a logo which means, and it's meant to inspire quality and confidence in people who don't know what they're doing abroad, so they come to the people that supposedly do. We are all honest people. We've been regulated, and we look after clients that come to us, whether we're agents, surveyors, lawyers, or anyone else, money exchange people, or anyone else that has something to do with the international property business. We have indemnity insurance of £3 million as a law firm. My law firm's called Cobalt Law. And we have a team of lawyers, which is very different from any other big firm, because we do much of the stuff that big firms in England and Wales don't do. So we do purchases in Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Northern and Southern Cyprus, Malta, North Africa, which includes Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. And then we also have a lawyer from Mexico, from Guadalajara. And Oscar's been with us many, many years. And he is an estate agent, funny enough. And when he's not being an estate agent, he's being a Mexican lawyer with us. So we have a lot of broad breadth knowledge in the firm about civil law jurisdictions, and also Russia and the further east. We've done work in China, Singapore, and the Orient. So, as I say, we punch very much above our weight in what we do. I met Randy a few months ago through Carla Raymond Kidd, who is with Coldwell Banker in Sarasota, And I've known Carla and Pat, her partner, for many, many years. In fact, we met them at a property show in London, and we became friends straight away, because those of you who know Carla and Pat, you'll know what they're like. And also they had another member of their team who is a New York immigration lawyer, and Donna Scadlati, who's in New York, back in New York now, and we work with her as well. So together we've developed an association, and I came to speak in Sarasota for the local realtors in 2007, and I've been back a couple of times to talk to them there. So yeah, I'm happy to come along and talk to people in whichever jurisdiction we're in. I have been doing this for 30 odd years, 33 years to be precise, and it never fails to amaze me the amount of times that I have to justify why I exist. Why do you exist as a lawyer doing this particular job when other countries say that you're not needed? Well, in my case, United Kingdom being a common law jurisdiction, just like the USA, you have federal law, you have local law and regional law, as it were, state law, and you are more codified. So you're more towards a civil law jurisdiction, but you're not totally civil law. You are very much common law and jurisprudence, which is case law takes effect like we have in England. And the civil law, which is the law that started off in Roman times with the Justinian, the Emperor Justinian, wherever he went, he laid this body of law down, which was left for many, many centuries, and then was added to by Napoleon. Wherever Napoleon went, he conquered a country and he left his body of law, which was called the Napoleonic, and is still called the Napoleonic Code. And the Napoleonic Code is the code which deals with civil law, criminal law, purchases of land, negligence, all sorts of torts and whatever, all types of law, and it's all codified. They don't have this system like we have, where they have precedents, which is case law. They do have case law, but it's very much a codified system which takes precedence, and it's a very much more rigid system of law, because if you think about it, we in America and the United Kingdom have precedent systems. So you have someone versus someone, and that body of law then gets appealed to an appeal court, then the Supreme Court, to the 9 judges and whatever. And we have the Court of Appeal in England and the Supreme Court, which is 9 judges as well. And it changes. It has an evolution, which a civil law jurisdiction doesn't have so much of. So you find that the law of buying property in France, for example, has been there since the early 1900s. It's been changed on odd occasions when serious things need to be changed, but to all intents and purposes, we're still talking about the Napoleonic Code and stuff that went on in the 1800s, the 1700s, and that sort of period of time. So it's very much a static body of law. And I can say with the utmost honesty that if something's happening in Portugal under civil law, it'll be the same thing in Italy, France, Spain, and any other jurisdiction which adopts a civil law jurisdiction. So my job is relatively easy, because once you've learnt one body of law, you can almost apply it with various nuances to the other European countries, which is the main work that we do. And I enjoy dealing with people. I speak 5 languages. Fortunately, my mum, being an Italian professor, said to me that, first of all, we'd learn Italian. We speak Italian at home, and then I learned English, went to nursery school, went to a private school, did Latin for 10 years, which is the foundation of Italian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, and also German that I speak, and odd bits of Russian that I speak. This to me is very, very good. The interaction of international law with my languages is what I think you need to be able to do my job and do it well. So all of us in the team speak at least 2 languages, one of them being English, and some very difficult language. We have Chinese, Russian, Arabic, and Turkish in the team. And then I speak the European ones with the other members of the team. So after 30 odd years, and after having done so many seminars and lectures around the world, for FIABSI, for A Place in the Sun exhibitions, and for various other organizations, national and international, I decided that I would go on a book writing course in 2015, because I wanted to put down on paper what I knew, but I just didn't know how to put it down on paper properly. And I went to see an organization called 10-10-10, which is a Canadian organization. They did a 5-day course on all sorts of things, neuro-linguistic programming, and one of the sections on how to write a book. And the culmination of that was the first edition of my book, which was not meant to be a tome like that. It was meant to be, as Randy knows, a hard-hitting, to the point book, which tells the person that knows nothing whatsoever about buying property abroad what he or she should think about. let alone do, but think about before they actually move themselves. And in fact, if you want to buy my book, the proceeds all go to charity. They go to the cancer hospital up the road here, the London Marsden Hospital, because my other half had cancer some 6-7 years ago. And I said that I would write a book, partly to educate people and partly to give some money to the Cancer Research Fund there. So that's what we're doing. So all the funds go there. It's not a money raking exercise for me. It's to go to the cancer research people. But in so doing, I have been able to capture the atmosphere in the 110 pages of what you need to know. Now I say you, not you guys who are estate agents and realtors, and you're the sort of, midway point between not knowing anything and between me as a lawyer, for no other reason other than you're estate agents and you don't do what I do and I don't do what you do. So it was meant to be a piece of knowledge which was direct and to the point. And at the end of it, guys, it has a notepad. It has a notepad of about some 15 pages so that you can take the book, or the client can take the book, or the reader can take the book to the estate agents when they're abroad, and they can write notes as they are there with the estate agent. It's a practical book in all sorts of ways. And it starts off with basically, guys are sat on their sofa on a rainy Sunday afternoon in the middle of Wales. It's absolutely bucketing it down, snow, hail, sleet, and everything else. And these two are looking at each other on the sofa and saying, why are we here? We are 40-something or 50-something years of age. Why don't we buy something that we can escape to in the sun? Because next door neighbours have bought a house in France and they've been going on and off, and we've been to France loads of times. And don't you think, darling, that we ought to buy something as well? And the guy looks at her and said, you must be crazy, woman. If I'm going to spend money buying a property abroad, think again. And then she convinces him that perhaps it would be a good idea. Well, as I say in the beginning of the book, what do you do next? Well, you don't do anything. You start, this is the period of gestation, which starts with the 12 months or 18 months of research, which I think everyone, when you're buying a property abroad, should do. Why? Because you cannot expect to get off a flight, let's say in Italy, in Florence, let's say, and go and discover Umbria and Tuscany, two of my favorite regions in Italy, of course, for obvious reasons, and expect to go and buy something the next day after you've arrived. It's like me landing in America or landing in Florida and going to see Randy and saying, Randy, I want to buy a property today. I'll buy that one. And he'll say, well, hold on a minute. You can't just buy that one. Is it a condo you want? Do you want a villa? Or, and there's all sorts of things. So I teach people, and as you know, education is the best way to influence people. You can't sell something. The days of selling have gone. You influence people by actually telling them stories and opening up a world that they did not know. So these two that sat on the sofa, they start investigating. Where would I start investigating? Well, of course, the first tool I would go to is the internet. We all have the www at our disposal, and that's the first point that I would go to. So first of all, you need to discover what country you want to buy in: Spain, Italy, France. Then you need to decide which part of that country. And then you need to decide whether you want the coastline or whether you want the countryside, the hills, skiing. Are you an avid skier? Therefore, all you want is the Alps and nothing else, the mountainous regions. Or do you want the seaside because you've got kids and you want a bit of everything so that they can enjoy their life? And these are the things that people don't think about. I mean, I often have telephone calls from people saying, I saw you on such and such a seminar. I want to buy a house in Spain. And I'll say to them, okay, so, well, have you been to Spain? No. Okay. Which area of Spain do you want to buy? I don't know. Well, what do you want? Do you want a coastline, or do you want a hills, or do you want a farm? Or, well, I don't know. Well, that now is not the point to come and see me. You need to go and visit the place. And I say to people, you need to go and visit the place in the summer, in the spring, in the autumn, and in the winter. You need to see the place at its best and at its worst. Because you know, as I do, especially with people like Randy, who's in the warmer parts of America, you agents sell when the weather is good. You agents sell when it's sun shining. You don't sell when in New York it's absolutely lashing it down and Fifth Avenue's in that much of rain or snow. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but people who come to me should be coming to people like you first. And unfortunately, on many occasions, people like those who buy for the first time don't come to me at all, because certain estate agents in Europe don't want us to get involved, because they think we are a spanner in the works and we don't add anything to the buying service or the selling service. They think they can just take the client and take them down a path which is the one they want, invite them to meet people that they want to meet, which are not always the people that they should be meeting, or not always the best people for that particular kind of person. So I get involved, And unfortunately, on many occasions, I don't get involved early enough in the process. And this is what the education is all about. It's teaching people at exhibitions and seminars on television. I do television programs on Channel 192 of Sky in London, for example, called Question of Property, where I sit with a panel of people, two other English estate agents. They talk about the English side of things, and I talk about the foreign side of things, and people throw questions at us on live TV or by email or whatever, and you never know what to inquire, what you're going to get inquired of, and it's very exciting. So this is why I always teach people, and after 33 years, I don't think I'm very much further on teaching people that they should come to see me first before signing anything, before the estate agent gets them to sign a reservation agreement, a preliminary contract, or even further other things. And then people come back to me and they say, I was in Spain last week, I've just flown back, and I finished the sentence by saying, and you signed something that you now want me to get you out of. And when you have that in front of you, you're starting with a negative, you're not starting with a positive, you're not starting from ground zero, you're starting from below. I'm having to work people out of that hole before we can go anywhere. And as I always say to people, and I don't know if I've mentioned this to Randy or not, but I always say, I come from the north of England. We're very simple, easy people to understand. And there is an airport near me, and we have an advert there which says, if you are buying a property abroad, contact Stefano Lucatello at Cobalt Law. And the number of people that come to me from that advert is incredible over the years. It's paid its worth many, many times over. But the majority of those people are those I've just mentioned who have signed something without taking proper legal advice, doing the proper due diligence, which is bog standard information. You wouldn't do this. I'm not teaching us anything, as I say, that you don't already know as a estate agent, but these people need to be helped. And I always say to people, when you arrive at the airport in the car park and you take your luggage out of the boot, please do not replace the empty space with your grey matter between your ears, only to pick that grey matter up when you come back from Spain, Italy, France, or Portugal, and then it's too late. Take your grey matter with you. And then I'll say things like, don't buy abroad unless you're intending to go abroad to buy something. Do not think that when 10 days out of your 14-day holiday is gone and you're bored out of your tiny mind that you could go start strolling along to estate agents and buy something. Why? Because you're not in buying mode, you're in holiday mode, and you estate agents know the psychology, and I make no bones about saying this. It's not meant to be a negative comment against you people, but the estate agent picks on a client who wants to buy something, and perhaps what you try and sell them is not always what they need or what they want or what they should be buying. And this happens in Europe. It happens a lot in Europe, especially on the costas in Spain, where the English people are spotted because they're white. They get spotted by a local who's been out there, usually an English person who's been out there, and usually she is 6 foot tall, blonde, long eyelashes, short skirt, high heels, and the guy brings his credit card out even before she's even had a chance to say hello. And she's whipped them off to an estate agency down the road. And that's how the majority of our English clients get taken down a road they shouldn't get down. Why? Because they get plied with a gin and tonic in the office, and they know this way of selling. And the English people are none the wiser until it's too late and they come back and look for my assistance. And then the cost for me to get them out of the problem is 10 times more than that which they would otherwise have paid had they instructed me from the beginning to look after their interests at the beginning. So finding your dream property, guys, is not always the easiest. You've got to take your hats off today, by the way, as estate agents, and think of yourselves as people who may want to buy in Europe, and therefore you don't know anything about buying in Europe. You're experts in your own country with the MLS system in whichever state you're based in, but in Europe it's a different case, completely different. So, you know, I tell people to think about population changes, monetary system, inflation, special events. Many countries sell on the basis of special events, like China was selling when the Olympics happened. And many European countries, like we did in London in 2012, had the Olympic Village in the east of London, which was only for the Olympics, but then afterwards they went up for public auction and public sale. And then now it's a beautiful village in the east side of London with amenities, and then the football stadium for West Ham United and that sort of thing. So think of that. Because when you buy in certain jurisdictions, there are special events, you can buy at low prices, and then on the back of the special event, like the Olympics or the Football World Cup or whatever, like Brazil, for example, you know, the Rio and Sao Paulo made a lot of money when they had the Football World Cup a few years back. Think of supply and demand, transport links, planning laws, you know, Climate change. Are you buying in a low island which may be overrun by water because of the change in climatic conditions? Changing in holiday patterns. And also, I ask clients as one of the first things, why are you buying the property? Are you buying because you want a holiday let? Are you buying because you want to rent it out so it has a rental income or a rate of return? Or are you buying it because you've had enough of the United Kingdom because of Brexit? You'll all have heard of Brexit, which is our exit from the European Union, which is an absolute nightmare. We are now going back to being a third world country. Those of us who are in the United Kingdom who are not fortunate enough like me to have two passports, I have an Italian one and a United Kingdom one, those United Kingdom citizens will be subject to the obtaining of visas in France, Italy, Spain and Portugal and every other European Schengen country, because they will now be treated like a person coming from Africa, a third world country. And we're going back to pre-74 when we had to get a visa to get into France, Spain, Italy and Portugal for any period over 90 days. And people who are over there and have been there many, many years are now thinking of coming back. Many have done because they don't know what the future holds for them. I always say that when one door shuts, another door opens. I think for those people who have cash, like estate agents, you can buy in Europe at great prices if you have cash, and cash is always king, as you know, whichever jurisdiction. So after having visited the internet, what do I tell people to do? Pick up a book. There are no books that have been written, as far as I'm aware, apart from one, which is Spain orientated only. There's no books that have been written since 2007. And my book is the only book that actually tries to encompass what you should need to know when buying property abroad. Since then, so I'm very proud. It's now in its second edition. It had a Brexit edition. I'm going to publish a third edition in due course, which sees us coming out of Brexit in 2021 and what the world in Europe perceives and what it holds for us. So what else do I say? Well, I send them to watch television programs. Only if in America you have our programs, something called A Place in the Sun, which is based on the Channel 4 program and the exhibitions that are held, the property exhibitions in London, Birmingham, various other places. We have those, so I tell people to watch those programs. The other thing is, of course, I tell people when you go on the internet, don't always believe what you see. Many websites that are there are not real. They are complete untruths. That's perhaps the best way of saying it without getting into trouble. My view is always that you should get out there, and if you can't kick it, and if it doesn't hurt you when it kicks it, it doesn't exist. So when you buy, for example, an off-plan development, that is a development that is still a flat piece of ground with nothing else but a CAD diagram or 3D building model, then you should go out there to see the developer and do not only the due diligence on the land and the property that you're going to buy, but also the due diligence, more importantly, further before, on the developer. You know, is he an individual? Is he a company? Does he know what he's doing? Has he been liquidated beforehand? Has he, for example, in America, you've got Chapter 15. You know, has he been into bankruptcy and is he protected? Has he come out of bankruptcy? Has he done sharp practices like taking people's money and then coming back as another entity, as a phoenix and rising up? I mean, one example you may or may not have heard of, and he still practices in America, is MRI, McAnthony Realty International, who is based in Florida. And he, in the whole of Europe, did many thousands of people out of money. And, you know, we're still dealing with picking up pieces of people who have bought from him and never obtained stuff in Florida. In fact, there's a subpoena out for him in Florida, and I think his dad still lives in Florida. In Bulgaria, he was chased out of Bulgaria by the mafia because he tried to take the mafia on in Bulgaria. So, you know, there are people who come and go, and they come in different guises, and they come back and they take people's money, then they disappear, and then they come back again. So do the due diligence on this sort of people and entity. And, you know, you need to create a budget as well. You know, how much do you want to buy for? People come to me and they say, well, I want to buy a property. Well, how much have you got? Well, I don't know, really. Well, you need to find out how much you've got. That's the starting point with anything. And you need to add another 10 to 13%, depending which part in Europe you're going to buy, for taxation. So if you're going in Italy and it's your prima casa, your first house, and it's going to be your main or only residence, and you're going to move there permanently, you pay 2% stamp duty. Whereas if I buy as a holiday home and it's not my main or only or principal residence, I'll be paying 9% plus the local notarial fees plus my fees. So it comes up to about 14%. It's quite expensive to buy in Italy unless you buy as a first home or your main or principal home. So, and then countries have various offerings. If you're not from the European Union, Spain, Portugal have things called golden visas, where you can invest 500,000 euros and you can get a residency, and at the end of the 5th year you're entitled to apply for a passport. So for those of you who come from America, from Asia, from Russia, you've got some money to spend and you want to invest in Europe, think about Malta, Cyprus, southern Cyprus, Spain, and Portugal. You can also get a change of tax residence in Portugal, which is called a non-resident tax residency. So you can be resident in Portugal but not be resident in Portugal, if you see what I mean, and pay a 20% tax, income tax on all your worldwide income for a period of 10 years. So that's good. So you need to do your research on the country. Now, if you say you want to buy in Europe, it's a nightmare. You need to identify the country and then the region and then the type of property. So that's the starting point. So that's, you know, that's what I tell people to do. And I always say to people, for no other reason, take my book, get on, it's on Amazon, put Stefano Lucatello into Amazon, you'll get my book and read it. Because once you've read the book, it will start to direct you on what you should be thinking about. And I make no bones about how direct it is. It's meant to be direct, and it's meant to save you a lot of money. And quite often I get people saying the buying process in France was awful because, and then I finish the sentence saying, because you didn't take the proper advice that you should have done at the time, because you thought that the agent was the person that would control everything. You followed the agent's requirements, and it wasn't always the right thing to do. Don't get me wrong. I bang on about agents because I always seem to be battling as a lawyer with agents who don't want us to get involved. So don't take it the wrong way, guys, but that's who I find as opponents. They're very few and far between the agencies that we work with who actually accept who we are. There are some in each of the jurisdictions that we work with, who we work with often. They send us clients because they know that we don't hinder the process. We are not here to hinder the process. We're not here to hinder you getting your commission. We're here to make sure that the client is led through the buying process in the proper manner, and that, you know, and it happens all in the right way. So you need to take your time in finding the property. You need to take your time in identifying what you want and seeing you know, how much you're going to spend and where we go from there. Then of course we have, are you going to buy an existing property? That's a second-hand property, or are you going to buy a new build that I talked about a few seconds ago? So the laws that apply to buying an existing property are somewhat different to those in Europe that apply to a new build. For example, we would do the due diligence on an existing property, and then depending on which country it is, the searches are different, the investigations are different. But the one thing I always say to clients who are not from those countries is have a survey done. And France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal, they don't have surveyors, as you call them, I think, inspectors. The people who do these inspections of properties to tell you whether the property is built right, whether it conforms to planning and all the regulations like that, and whether it's okay, basically, and whether it's structurally safe, that sort of thing. That's what we mean by surveyors. And they don't have these in France, Spain, and Italy. And it's only the English people who come to these countries and say that they want these doing. And I always insist on there being a condition in the contract that says that if the survey or the result of this inspection is not good, that we have the right to pull away from the contract without any penalty and to receive back our 10%, which is the normal deposit fee that is payable. The other thing about buying property in civil jurisdictions is that unless you have a conditional contract like that, and quite often if you're getting a mortgage, you will also put a condition in the contract that says if I don't get my mortgage, I can pull out of it without any penalty. And I say this because and France is the best country to buy in Europe that protects the consumer the most. It has a consumer code which is bar none. The first thing it does is it says that if you enter into a contract, you have 10 working days within which to pull out of the contract without losing your deposit of 10% or without being liable to pay any other penalty. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you can insert these conditions into the contract, and they're called suspensive conditions. And it means that if one or more of these conditions is not met either by the vendor or by someone out of your control, that you can again pull away without any loss or damage. And this is the same, this 10% loss is the same in every civil law jurisdiction. The 10-day period is only applicable in France. It's the only country that does that, but the rest of it is the same. So if you put a condition into the contract and it doesn't fulfill, you can pull away. And the other thing is that if you do enter into a contract and you don't put a suspensive condition in, you are then obliged to purchase the property. And if you were intending on getting a mortgage, for example, for part or all of the monies, and you don't get it, then you are bound by contract to complete that contract. And you will be sued by the vendor and his lawyers for the monies. They will start by taking the 10%, which is all throughout Europe, and then they will come back to you for punitive damages, which we don't have in the United Kingdom. It's only something you have in America and the rest of Europe. As a common law, we don't have that punitive damage thing. It will arrive, I'm sure, in due course from America, like every other good thing that arrives across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, in due course with the winds. That's what happens. People don't understand that, because in England, if you exchange contracts, which is where people go into a binding contract, the system of law that applies is different, and we have something called specific performance. So that if the vendor doesn't comply on completion, we can sue them with a notice for completion, and then we can get our damages, but it's a different procedure. So we explain to people that the civil law is totally different. The Justinian Code and the Napoleonic Code is totally different. So financing, talked about mortgages. I always say to people, if you're going to get a mortgage for all or part of the monies that you need to buy a property abroad with, you should go to a bank which is based in the country that you are buying the property in. Why? Because the rates, certainly within Europe, are cheaper than in the United Kingdom. Secondly, the periods over which you can borrow are much longer, so you can go to 75 or 80 years of age in Spain, France, and Italy. Unheard of. Who of us is going to be working at that age? Hopefully none of us. And thirdly, if something were to go wrong, God forbid, then the bank would foreclose on the property abroad and not your main or only or principal residence, especially if you are a young family and you have kids in the family under the age of 18, you would lose or stand to lose the roof over your head, your main or only your principal residence. So that's very, very important. So for those reasons, I always say to people, try and get a mortgage abroad. We have loads of mortgage brokers now, well, 10 or 11 of them, certainly, who specialize in foreign mortgages. It's not the easiest way to get to do things, but I advise always to use other people's monies where you can. For those of you from America, like you're listening to me, getting a mortgage in Europe is not the easiest thing to do. Because you have to comply with our anti-money laundering rules. We have to comply with know your client, as you have, and then we have to prove to the people who are the brokers who will get the deals done that your salaries are enough, and then these things can be taken into account. So the American system is slightly different, slightly more difficult for the broker to get a mortgage for you, but it is possible. And the other thing is, when you, and I would say this to clients, and I'm sure you do to your clients when you're buying for investment purposes, don't buy a property on the basis that you can't really afford it, and that you're basing your ability to buy the property and the repayment of the mortgage on the ability to rent out the property. Because if you have vacant periods or empty periods and you can't pay the mortgage, then the building society in England or the bank or the lender will come back to you and sue you. In Spain, France, Italy, they will tolerate 3 months, and after 3 months, they will send you a letter which usually goes to the property abroad and not to your home address. And if it's a rental property, you might never know that you've got this notice saying you're in arrears. We are now going to start commencing procedures for forfeiture, and you may never get that. And the next time you go across to the property in France, Spain, or Italy, you'll find a lock on it, or somebody else even living in it because it's been sold at public auction. In the civil law jurisdictions in France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, everywhere else, there's a system of 3 auctions. And on the 3rd auction, irrespective how low the price is, you can buy properties for 20 euros. I know a client who bought one for 200 euros. He bought a 5-bedroom villa for 200 euros, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute absurdity. Don't fall into the trap of buying a property abroad and not having someone who looks after your property if you're not there permanently. In certain jurisdictions like Spain, if you are a non-resident who buys a property, you have to have someone called a gestor, G-E-S-T-O-R. And the gestor is the person who manages your property, pays the local taxes, makes sure that your bank account is full of money so that you can pay the taxes and all the other bits and pieces that happen. So in certain jurisdictions, you are obliged to do that. In every European jurisdiction, you're obliged to have a tax code. And this is an alphanumeric number which lasts for the rest of your life, but without which you cannot buy a property in Europe. And you must have it before you do the closing ceremony in front of the notary. Legal advice and assistance is chapter 4 of my book. Well, as I've said to you, I couldn't have stressed more. how important it is to come to someone, not because I want the business. I love the business, yes, don't get me wrong, but because for your own sake, if you're not going to go to me, please go to someone who knows what they're talking about, someone like me. And there's not many people, as Randy knows, that are like me and can give the necessary advice and assistance in the black and white terms that I do. And I think coming from Northern England is an advantage to me, because I tell people in black and white terms, whether they like it or not, what they need to do, and whether they like it or not. I don't tell them what they want to hear, I tell them what they need to hear. Whether it's a negative or a positive, I tell them in those terms, and that's why we get repetitive business. Quite often, you know, our recommendations come because of clients knowing that we will tell them the truth. We won't blow smoke up their backsides, as English people say. So please take the necessary legal advice, whether it's a local in France, Spain and Italy, or whether it's someone like me who has specialized teams within the team, but we are outside the country. The advantage to using me as well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is that you use me and you talk to me or my team, and we speak English to you, we write English to you, we write in terms that you understand, and we translate the legal concepts from foreign civil law into English, so you understand what you need to do, how it works, why you have to do it, and when you have to do it, and how much it's going to cost. So it's very important. So we also tell people to consider how they're going to buy. Are you going to buy as an individual? Are you going to buy as a company? In France, for example, you can buy as individuals, as companies, but there is a particular type of company called an SCI, a Société Civile Immobilier, which is a purpose-built inheritance tax or succession tax saving exercise. Why? Because each one of the family owns shares in the company, and when people die, their shares are transferred from one person to another person until the last man standing gets them all. But this avoids succession tax, and it helps with English inheritance tax saving as well when you die. Let me go back to where we're buying from a developer, the person who has bought a piece of land, has got a mortgage from the bank, and he decides he's going to develop the piece of land. You need to do the necessary due diligence against the developer as you do the land. You need to make sure that you've got the proper planning permissions and that you are not going to be taken for a ride. In every European jurisdiction, ladies and gentlemen, there is a guarantee requirement by the developer that he must go to his own bank, and that, as you know, when developments are done in stages, they are payable in stages. So there are usually 4 or 5 stages of 10, 20, 30%, whatever's payable. But at each stage, the developer must give a policy of insurance for the amount of monies that he has received from you, so that if he goes into liquidation or fails to complete or doesn't have a planning permission, that you get your money back. Not like the good old days in the 80s and the 90s before these things came out, where English people especially lost out to Spanish developers who took their money, ran, bought the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and didn't invest what they should have done in the development, and you lost all your money. So now you are safeguarded. It is a criminal offence, ladies and gentlemen, for developers in Europe not to afford you such an insurance policy, and I would tell you to walk away and tell the police pretty quickly. Chapter 5, conversion of money. You need to convert money, and what do you need to do? You need to talk to an FX agent, being a money transfer agent, and get the best deal. Do you buy ahead or do you buy in bits and pieces? I advocate always buying ahead and using an FX agent and not a bank. Banks give you low rates of exchange, and they take high commissions. If they say that they're not taking any commission, it means they're giving you a low rate of exchange. Nobody does anything for nothing, ladies and gentlemen. So go to an FX agent, someone like MoneyCorp or the other people. You know, we use TorFX. If you look in my book, they're a subsidiary of Currencies Direct, based in London, one of the big companies, and they're very, very good. So we get to the point of exchange of contracts. This is the point where you actually get a binding contract. And there's nothing really to do now in the civil law jurisdiction except for attend at the notary's office on completion. The system of completion is different. The notary, I use the word in a slightly different fashion. It's not like an English notary or an American notary. A notaire in France is an authority of the government, and he is there to see that the vendor is the vendor, the purchaser is the purchaser, the right money is being paid, that the vendor pays any capital gains tax or other taxes that are due to the state before completion or closure happens, and that the buyer pays all the stamp duty, the VAT in the case of a new property or whatever, in case when he buys the property. He is not there, ladies and gentlemen, in a civil law jurisdiction, as many people think wrongly, to advise the buyer on his legal rights. You must therefore apply to get someone like me, a lawyer who knows what they're talking about. That's why people go wrong, because they arrive at the notarial's office thinking that he will explain to them everything. He's not there to explain the rights and the wrongs, what is and what isn't possible. Many people get this wrong. So that's what happens. And you must either attend in person or with the power of attorney, and then you can complete. But then life starts, because then you've got the maintenance and the taxes and all the other bits and pieces to pay for. And you must remember that there are annual taxes to pay on the maintenance of a property, irrespective of whether you rent the property out or not. Certain jurisdictions in Europe, you must pay a notional income tax, which is based on the rateable value, or what's called a cadastral value, the cadaster being the Latin word for a register, and it's where you find the registration of a title deed, and there are certain rates that are applicable. So in certain countries, if you rent the property out, in all countries, if you rent the property out, you must declare the taxation, declare the income, I beg your pardon, for the purposes of taxation, not only in your country of residence, but also in the country where the property lies. Now, you'll have all heard of double taxation treaties. If you have a double taxation treaty between the US and, let's say, Italy, if you derive a rental income in Italy, you will declare it to the IRS because you're taxable in America, and you'll declare it to the Italian authorities because the property is physically resident in Italy. But you will not pay tax twice. You will only pay tax to the IRS in your case because you're tax resident in America and not in Italy. And there will be dialogue between the two tax authorities saying, this guy is based in New York, so he's paying us the tax, so go away. That's the sort of disclosure that happens. You will only pay tax twice if the taxation in the country where the property is based is higher than in your jurisdiction, and you'll then only pay the difference. So that's important. In some countries, you have to pay income tax on the notional value of your property, even though you may not rent it out. That's Spain, for example. Now, making a will is important, and tips on estate planning. Let me move my cursor. Here we go. It's highly recommended that you make a will. And I'm sure you all know this, whether you're rich people or poor people, if you own a property abroad, you must make a will. In the old days, we used to say to people, make a will in France if you're buying a property in France, lodge it with a notaire that acted for you when you bought, and have an English will which deals with your English property, put a copy of the other with the other, then everyone knows what's happening. Now, civil law, as I said to you, is very, very punitive. The civil law is when you die, a person dies, the body of law that applies to a person's estate, it's called forced heirship. Now, if you imagine a cake and you imagine a slice of this cake, this small slice of this cake is the free estate, is what you as a person can leave to whomsoever you would wish. The rest of the cake is planned for already by the state. It goes something like this, and it's always the same in jurisdictions of Europe. If you have husband and wife and 2 kids, when one of the parents dies, the remaining spouse gets 50% and the kids get 50%. If there's 3 kids, it's 2/3 to the kids and 1/3 to the wife, let's say she survives. And if there's more than 3 kids, it's 3/4 to the kids and 1/4 to the wife. So we always advocate to try and make life simple, especially for English people who have common law. In England and Wales and Scotland, we are allowed to leave the whole of our estate to whomsoever we would wish without restriction, because we don't have this concept, Napoleonic Code, of forced heirship. And by the way, the concept came about. Why? Because when Napoleon took his men away to fight, when they came back, they would usually, unfortunately, find that the ladies had sexual intercourse with somebody else, had children through somebody else, had run away with the title, had run away with the property, and he wanted to protect his men who were entitled, he said, to come back to find the house was still there, intact, for all the money that they'd paid for it. And this is why the spouse is always punished. The female spouse under civil law is always punished. And it's called forced heirship. And that's why Napoleon, the Justinian Code, decided that this was what was going to happen. So we have a solution to the problem. The solution to the problem for Americans or anyone who buys a property in Europe is that since August of 2015, you can now make something called an international will, subject to European Regulation 650 of 2012, which says this, that if you own a property abroad in a European law jurisdiction, you are no longer obliged to use the body of law that applies to that country, let's say French law or Italian law, but that you can use another European jurisdictional law, English law, which is better. Why? Because you can leave the whole of it in the way that you want to. And it therefore avoids therefore avoids forced heirship and the requirement under French law or Italian law or Spanish law to leave to whomsoever the government says you should leave it to. So it's very, very important, and we've done many of these international wills since 2015. It's written in my book, it's all in the book, and it tells you how it works. It's very important that you should consider that, and because we always say as lawyers that people should renew their wills or look at their wills every 3 to 5 years, because either they've married, and therefore in England, if you marry a previous will, it's automatically null and void, you have to make it again, or you may have had children, or someone may have died that you want to give something to, or your circumstances might have changed, and you've become either totally impoverished, or let's hope very, very rich, and therefore your circumstances have changed, and to whom you would wish to leave stuff has also changed. The other thing that we also consider in the book is retiring abroad. And many people in England, because of our bad climate here, from northern Europe, always say that they want to move abroad because of the warmer climate. And we deal with lots of people now, because of Brexit, especially because of Brexit, who want to move across to foreign climes and either just live out their retirement or, as another chapter in my book describes, become investors in foreign property. And there is now a bold body of people who no longer want to just invest in United Kingdom property, but they want to take the risk with the proper advice, come to me and other people, and buy and invest in European capital cities mainly. I would not advise people to go into the investment business of property abroad unless they invest in capital cities like Berlin, like London, London, it's in Rome, or whatever, because then you've got a fantastic rental yield and a rental return and capital appreciation. If you go and invest in France, for example, you will never really make much money by way of capital appreciation. You will make your money by rental yield. And I would always advise people to make sure that you buy a property which has at least 3 bedrooms, 2 toilets, an area of land, a swimming pool is a must, and then you will get a proper rental yield. And make sure that the proper planning has been done, and all sorts of other bits and pieces apply. So retiring abroad and setting up a portfolio is possible. And you know, if you leave the United Kingdom, in my case, or you leave the USA, remember to close things off with your IRS. Remember to tell them that you've moved and you no longer have assets in the United States of America. And remember to tell them that your tax residence has changed. Now, with the IRS, it's very difficult, as you know, because there's the long arm of the law that gets everything in every jurisdiction, and you must declare everything. And as long as you remain an American citizen, you will always have an obligation to declare to the IRS, whether you're there or not. But because of double taxation treaties, you will, in the most cases, be exempt from the double taxation that could otherwise impact you. And the other thing is that you may want to set up a business. Now, remember, when you're setting up a business, there are local rules, national rules, international rules for setting up businesses. Make sure you do the proper research for setting up a business. For example, you may want to take your business from America and set it up in France. Nowadays, with telecommunications and Wi-Fi and whatever, you can do that. But be careful. You should not flaunt the law, and you be careful you don't do some commercial activity in areas where you shouldn't be doing commercial activity, such as a residential property or a flat or an apartment. You know, I have a client at the moment who's buying in Nice. He's a financier in Manchester, and he wants to do Airbnb. He's got one in Italy. In France, the condominium rules prohibit him in Nice from doing that. So be careful if you want to set up a business from an international property. Brexit, well, Brexit is Brexit. Unfortunately, I hate Brexit because I thought we were never going to have this problem, this intolerable problem. It's brought with us problems that make us a third world country. And what will Europe be like when we leave? I don't know. Well, I think as Europeans, we will, as English people, will be treated as third-class citizens. We are already. We're seeing this as lawyers with France, Spain, and Italy not giving us the visas as quickly as possible, not wanting us to get into Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal if we're Brits. Fortunately, those of us who've got other passports can use them. But anyway, that is that. And conclusion: if it all goes wrong, unfortunately, sometimes it's all goes wrong. You might think about leaving something in your home country to which you can return, rent the property off, so you have a pied-à-terre to come back to, and you don't have to start building all over again. And you know, that's really the 10 chapters of my book. The final thing I'd say to you is these mixed signals for Europe and COVID-19. We've seen there's been a substantial decrease in sales of properties, as probably in America as well. It's gone down 50%. These are stats that I got yesterday from my talk with Carla Raymond on France. You know, the sales level between April and July has gone down 50% in Europe. COVID-19 is coming and going. I don't know if you're watching our lot, but I don't think your man at the top, Trump, is any better than our man at the top. And I think we'd have all been exterminated now had Johnson not had COVID-19, because he was doing survival of the fitness. He was saying, yeah, let everyone die who's not strong enough, and we'll start a new era with those that survive. Unfortunately, you know, Trump and Johnson are in the same boat, I think. I usually don't expose on political things, but as a lawyer, sometimes I have to. Estate agents here are picking up the pieces, and they are starting to sell again. The market in London is picking up. The markets in Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal also picking up. Certain markets like Portugal haven't really gone down. Why? Because Portugal is so small, limited sales, and the properties that are being sold are good value properties. So remember, guys, there is always an opportunity out there. If you need any help in Europe, come and see me. But I urge you to pick my book up, not because I say I want the money, but because I think it's a great read, and it will give you the basics upon which to buy in Europe. And you are estate agents in America, you will not necessarily know what goes on in Europe and how we deal with things in mainland Europe, not England, but mainland Europe, the Schengen countries. Randy, over to you, my friend. I think that's all I want to say. I think I've hit time just on for you to question and answer session me. But as I say, buy the book. It's on Amazon. Just put Stefano Lucatello into it. And if you want to send me an email, please do so. But it's been a pleasure talking to you all, and I hope it's been of value to you as an educational source. And if you want to know anything more from me, then there are my details. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefano. We appreciate that. A couple of questions here. Samira was asking, is there a Kindle version of the book?
There is an electronic version of the book. Yes, you can download it. Yeah, absolutely. Just go on Amazon and download it.
Great. And Evan asks, as I'm sure several of us have, how do we get in on those auctions in Italy?
The
20 euros.
Right. Okay. In France, and mainly in France and in Italy and in Spain, there are public auctions. They're called judicial auctions. Are you talking about auctions where people lose their properties? They're about to lose their properties and forfeiture by a bank and that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, whatever it was that you described. And
yeah, okay. Especially in Spain, the best way to deal with it is this. If you're let's take Spain. If you want to buy a property in Spain and you want to save money, I always say exclude the agent. Sorry, guys, that's the way it goes. Why? Because in Spain, especially, when a bank forecloses on a property, it will want it off its balance sheet as quickly as possible. It doesn't want to be an estate agent. It wants to just recover the amount it's lent with some administrative and legal costs. And the advantage I always say to people buying from a bank is that the legal title is good, because otherwise they wouldn't have lent on it in the first place. They wouldn't have given a mortgage on it. You buy for the same price as the debt outstanding with some just nominal admin and legal costs. What could ever go wrong? The way to entice a bank to give you that book and to open the forfeiture book is to go to the bank and say, I want to buy a property in Spain in your area. I want to open a bank account with your bank, and I want to have a mortgage from you, Mr. Banker. And that's the way to do it.
Very good, thank you. And then Christine was asking, she was wonderful information, she says, but what about Greece? Any reference investment opportunities there that you could address?
Yeah, the islands I mean, there's many thousands of islands in Greece. We don't do very much in Greece. We have done, and it's the same principle, the same body of law applies in Greece as it does in the rest of Europe. It's civil law code, with certain variations for certain islands as to what you can buy and who can buy. On the smaller islands, sometimes there are restrictions on foreigners not being able to buy. Why? Because they don't want to be invaded by the Brits or the Americans or the Italians or whatever. So be careful. Do the again, it goes back, guys, to doing the preliminary research to the jurisdiction or the area that you want to buy in. But we can do that for you, no problem. We have offices in Athens. We have office in many of the islands, so we can do that for you.
Excellent. And let's see if we have any other questions here. If you would like to unmute yourself, you can press on your space bar and hold it down and ask a question if you have one for Stefano. Anybody have any questions at this point?
Fire away, guys. Don't be shy. I know you're not. Estate agents are never shy. So come on.
True enough.
They're all-
Anyone have any other questions?
Don't look like it. No, I've
I
stumped.
think you've answered them all,
Have I answered everything and said everything you need to know? Come on, guys. Throw something. Throw me a curved ball. Marissa's raised a hand. What's she saying?
Let's see if I can. I'm not seeing it in the question area, but like I said,
One
feel
quick-
free. Go ahead.
One quick curveball.
Who said that?
Evan
I
Dennehy
don't
here.
know how to text it to you. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you, Marissa. Yeah, loud and clear. Yeah.
Buongiorno Stefano.
Buonasera, signora. O signora.
Io
Whichever.
sono italiana.
Ah, benissimo.
Abito. I live in the United States, but I am a dual citizen. I have status in Italy as well as here in the United States. Status. So with regard to taxes, is that something that you cover as well, as far as how to deal with the best way to shield your
Absolutely.
income?
Yes. Legally, of course.
Of course, only legally. But so, you know, we definitely are interested in buying a property and spending some of our time in Europe. And I've been researching Portugal and the Golden Visa, Spain and Italy.
We do that. We have offices in all the jurisdictions, and we do the golden visas in Spain and in Portugal. We do the 10-year residency thing for Portugal. Look into Italy. I mean, if you're Italian, don't go to Spain. Go to Italy. You know,
Go to Italy.
I mean, we've got the government is actually giving loads and loads of incentives now. For example, if you buy a property as a foreigner, and they're just about to pass this back because it was only for residents, but they're now changing it. If you buy a property as a foreigner, you can get back 110% of your investment into the property that you put into it for remaking the property, rebuilding it from a pile of whatever. How can that be wrong? You know, you're getting 110% back of the money that you spend 100, you get 110,000 euros back.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, everybody.
There was, I think Evan was wanting to say something.
Yes, Evan had a question.
You killed him.
I was just going to throw a curveball, but I think Marissa's curveball was just fine.
Oh, go on, throw me another one. We don't mind.
Okay, so I was just wondering about commercial properties. Do the concepts in your book, do they cross over to commercial? Maybe not every last one of them, but is there a lot of crossover between residential and commercial?
We don't do as much commercial as I would wish to do. I mean, as an English lawyer, I do a lot of commercial work, leases and that sort of thing, Evan. We don't do a lot abroad. Every now and then we get the guy, usually in Spain or in Italy, where the guys go across, husband and wife go across, and they've got a catering background, and they want to set up a bar, an Irish bar, or a pizzeria or something like that. And then we get into that sort of commerciality. Very rare that we get into the commercial aspects of it, but we can deal with it. Some of the aspects in the book that I deal with cross over both residential and commercial. But if there's something in there that isn't in the book, you know, you've got my email address. I'm only happy to advise on or give you a pointer or a direction. If I don't know an answer, I'll tell you. I'll go and research it and come back to you. Or I'll indicate someone who knows better than I do, and I'll send you on to him or her.
Okay, much appreciated. Thank you, Stefano.
Thank you, Evan. And Stefano, Christine was also asking do you have information for the Athens office? She would like to reach out to them, or she would just go through your office, would she know?
No, you just come through us, because what we'd like to do is, we do this, we provide a service, which is a one-stop service. So you don't need to speak to the local agent. You speak to us, and we do all the backwards and forwards. You just sit in your armchair and I just feed you the information.
Excellent. And then I think Teresa was asking, let's see, where are you seeing most foreign transactions? For example, at one time, China was largely purchasing in the US. Any predominance of any one of the countries?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends. I'll use my hat put my hat on as a UK citizen.
Okay.
Over the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of foreign investment from the Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore especially. Singapore is going absolutely ballistic. The money that is coming out of Singapore they know something that we don't, but they're usually very, very quick off the mark. The Chinese, the Russians are coming back with a vengeance into London, even though we've got this new anti-money laundering stuff where people who have invested now have to disclose where the money came from, and lots of big Russians are having the properties taken away from them. I don't know if you've heard that, or if you've got the same stuff in America, the disclosure requirements. As regards Europe, Italy is also being inundated, especially in the Chianti region, which is now called Chianti Shire, by the Russians, who are all escaping Russia, all investing into Italy. And the other parts, strange enough, you've got a boat. Many of the people are now investing along the Adriatic corridor in Croatia and Macedonia, Albania. People are coming up from Turkey, up the Aegean, up into the Adriatic, and putting their boats there. Many people, you know, I don't know if you know this, but many people are now multimillionaires, are now moving their boats from Monaco, Monte Carlo, out of the Med and into the Adriatic, and they're all buying in Croatia. I mean, if you don't know Croatia, look at Croatia. It's still Wild West, so be careful. Always count your fingers after you've shaken hands with somebody in Croatia. Just check you've got 4 fingers and a thumb, because they're likely to take something away from you when they shake your hands. But apart from that, Croatia is beautiful. It's like Venice. And in fact, Croatia, Dubrovnik, Split, all built by the Venetians. So it's very similar to being Venice.
Interesting. Let's see, do we have any other, we don't have, we're not sure any other questions. Anyone have a question?
Stan's got his hand up. Have you got your hand up, Stan?
I have a comment and a question.
Fire away.
Stan Armstrong. I'm a commercial investment real estate broker here in Greenville, North Carolina. I do things all over the U.S. Have worked on some international projects. For Stefano, when looking at, and I go to Expo Real fairly often, but looking at industrial or retail or hotel properties, to get the correct valuations, do you recommend sticking with the RICS valuators, or you, okay?
But remember that that's for the United Kingdom. If you're buying in London, I do a few hotel jobs, and we call them RICS Red Book valuations. Okay. So for the United Kingdom, always stick to the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors being your inspectors, I think you call them. As I say, and you're quite right, Stan, yes, adopt the Red Book valuations. Be careful to get the full details, the due diligence. I'm doing the sale of a hotel, big hotel in London at the moment, to a Russian consortium. They're paying £150 million for this hotel. It's only in 75 rooms, but it's quite a famous one, a big one in a very nice part of London. And the original purchase price was 250 million, but then of course when the books were opened and they saw the number of rooms, the planning permission to extend the hotel, the occupancy rates and all these things, as you know, I'm probably talking to an expert like yourself, Stan, you need to look at these very, very carefully. The valuations in foreign countries always have to come from local experts, and you must make sure that when you buy in France, Spain, Italy and Portugal, that the values, again, that you're being given are correct values, because people start up here, don't they, and then they come down when they know what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm a friend of Steve Williams, past president of RICS, and he does a real good job over here in America.
Good.
Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure. Anything else, Randy? Anyone else?
We have any other questions? Please feel free while we have Stefano available to us.
I mean, I'm not just available now. I mean, you've got my details, Randy. I mean, if you want to send out the version of the PowerPoint that I've sent, please do send it out. Okay. I urge you, as I say, to buy the book, because I think by buying the book, you learn a lot of things that perhaps you might not know about Europe. And if it's not in there, just ping me an email or ping Randy an email and he'll call me or contact me or whatever. Always happy to talk to you. And of course, if you want me to do a talk to any of your regional associations, like I've done for Sarasota and whatever else, you think it might be of value, you know, ping me a topic to Randy and we'll organize something together. I love talking to people because I think it's the only way, to teach people about things they don't know, and I hopefully put it across, because lawyers usually are boring. I don't think I'm boring. And I usually manage to crack a few smiles with people who are even serious people, like the Texans and the people like that. We're all, who are always like that sort of thing. It must be the sun that makes them, not smile at all. But, being serious, if you want any information, you want me to do something, always available to do it. And in fact, I used to be a member of FIABC. The firm was a member of FIABC in 2005, 2006, and we went to the World Conference in Bangkok, in Thailand, and it was great. But it was in the infancy. It was 15 years ago, and I think things have changed. I'm tempted, Randy, to become a member again of FIABC, because we did have a wonderful time in Bangkok at the Thailand World Conference, and I did learn a lot of things and met thousands of people. I mean, it was huge. And I've still got the directories for 2005 and 2006, which I keep, and I sometimes investigate people in there and talk to them, and they're still, the majority of them still there.
That's excellent. Of course, we definitely want you, we insist on your membership. We'll work that out, I promise you. I have posted my email in the chat for those of you, if you have any other questions or I can help in any way. I want to thank Allison, our Secretary General, for setting all this up. Stefano, thank you so much for all this wonderful information that we received today. And thanks to each one of you who've stayed on to listen in, and I know that you've benefited from it. And Stefano, we look forward to getting you on board and to having you for additional presentations in the future.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to that.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Have a good day. See you all. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Okay. Great job, my friend.
Thank you very much.
We had some excellent responses, and it was very well done as always. So
hey guys, I'm still on. I just wanted to say
us.
hi. Good job.
Thank you.
Hey, Carla, how you doing?
Hi, darling. I'm fine. How about you?
Oh, great. You know what I'm like when I get into my routine. I love doing
Yes.
it. I love doing it. But this one's slightly different because it was more. I never actually, Randy, done a talk on my book. To be.
I like this one. I'd like to do this at our own association.
Fine. Yeah, I think it went all right, didn't it, Randy? Did I miss anything I should have said?
Not a bit. We had, as you probably saw, we had a lot of comments about from people on how valuable the information was and how much they enjoyed it. So, and pretty much everyone stayed on for the whole time. So that's certainly an endorsement.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I would agree with what Carla said, that you're anything but boring. Like I said, you're very boring. And Carla, were you on when I suggested that he provide his YouTube channel for his cooking classes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
I've been to his house. He's cooked for me. He's phenomenal. So good guy.
I can imagine. Yeah.
That was many years ago. It's changed. It's refined now. But I'll send you the link. It's a Vimeo and it's a program. I've done a pilot program, Randy, for a cooking program in Italy, which we did in Puglia. We did it in Ostuni.
Okay, right.
It's the first one of 10 that I want to do. I'm due to do the others next year because of COVID and one thing and another, but I'm due to do them. And I'll do a different region. And what we'll do is we'll investigate the culture, the property that's available, and also the cooking. So it's a mixture of everything in that particular area. But I think you'll have a laugh. I mean, it was a pilot, and there's lots of things in the pilot, in the new ones, that I wouldn't do in the pilot. Yeah. But it's fun. It was done with a very dear friend of mine who is a presenter who did the presenting on many of the TV programs I've done on television, Gemma Forte. And Forte is, as of the Forte International Group, the hotel group, Forte. She's the niece of Charles Forte, the owner. And it went really well. We did Puglia in 3 days, and we're hoping to do, Venice and Umbria and Tuscany. Sicily. I've never done Sicily at all. I know Sicily very, very barely. Also Sardinia, because of some culinary. I mean, Sicily is. You need a month in Sicily, and you need a month in Sardinia to investigate it. It's so beautiful.
Sure is.
And I'd like to Randy, we're still live. Just FYI.
Yes.
Say again?
Yeah. Okay, I'm just letting you know we're still live. Yeah. Okay. And we still have a few people on the call too.
That's perfectly fine.
I haven't said anything you shouldn't have said.
It's just, well, no. We just want to know that Stefano is a chef disguised as an attorney. I think, really, aren't you?
If you look at my
that's his first love.
Yeah, that's my first love. Yeah. If you look at my Facebook, Stefano Lucatello Facebook, or you look at me on Instagram, you'll see me in my chef jacket, which I was awarded when I cooked at the Chef's Academy in Ostuni 2 years ago. They thought that my cooking merited chef jacket with the insignia. So I was very proud of that day. So I'm very happy to be able to do that. But I do a lot of Facebook. You'll see a lot of my recipes, photographs on Facebook. I haven't done some for a week or so, 10 days, because the market here has picked up so much that we are now doing so much